Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. So I'm dropping content. My name's the Nerd Man, and I've been dropping some content for subscribers, all 7 of them at the moment. But I hope you enjoy this video. So as you can see from the title, I'm going to be discussing So I'm going to make this like a kind of two-part. And I hope this works for you. I can't do reaction videos on my computer at the moment because there's something wrong with it. It has some virus and it messed up a lot of my system. But essentially, I was listening to a discussion by Jody's Corner with Fatal J. And they came across some interesting points, and I wanted to respond live because I haven't listened to the full discussion yet. But they came upon, my boy Superman, and so they started discussing it. And there were parts of it in the beginning where I was agreeing with Jody, and parts that I didn't. And I wanted to respond live and have you listen, and then tell you what I think of what they're saying, essentially. So I'm going to play now. Hopefully it comes to the part pretty quickly.
Based on her?
So,
did she found the NAACP?
No, sir.
Then no.
Here you go.
But I'll tell you, I don't know who Sean is. I don't know the guy's name. But the dude who's writing the book of Snyder, he's a douchebag, bro. And he's the representative.
So he's talking about the Snyder cut movement at the moment.
SSJK Dots with the $10 super
that's
chat.
right. That's right. That's right, motherfucker.
I ain't gonna speak on it because Sean is a good dude, man.
He's a good dude. Oh, when I put the screenshot,
Fast forward it a bit.
Oh, man.
He's a good dude.
Okay, y'all are coming through with these super chats because y'all bringing back my memory. Okay.
Okay, here we go.
The idea of Zack Snyder making Superman the way he is.
Yeah,
right.
That's one of them. Yes.
You want the Golden Age Superman.
Silver Age.
Okay, let me stop
Golden
right
Age
here.
Silver Age, that's pretty much the same.
Let me stop right here. So as he was saying, as you can hear, Silent J is saying that people who are against Snyder's vision of Superman want the Golden Age Superman, which I think what he's referring to is the kind of Christopher Reeve Superman. And I'm not sure Jody's position on this. Exactly. Sometimes he seems to be saying what I'm saying. Other times he seems not to be. I do not want another Christopher Reeves Superman. All I want is a guy or somebody to do a take on Superman where, just like they did with Batman, there's a difference between Michael Keaton's Batman, which played then, or the original Batman from the 60s, right? Or or James Bond. That there's the core characteristics, of the James Bond, but Daniel Craig and Roger Moore do it differently. So as long as I can identify those core characteristics that make Superman Superman, i.e. he is the aspirational hero, right? I don't care how they play that. They can play that many different ways. The problem with Zack Snyder's Superman is he wasn't the aspirational version of the hero. And for me, that isn't Superman. That's like taking away his ability to fly. Right? You take away that, it's not Superman. It's somebody with Superman's powers. Okay? And especially when you come to something like BVS. Something that comic book fans have been waiting for a long time. Batman v Superman, right? So you can make excuses for Man of Steel. It was a take. He swung, and in my opinion, he missed. Some people think he didn't miss. He actually made Superman more compelling. I don't know why, but. You take Batman v Superman. What do people want to see? They want to see Batman v Superman. There's no deconstructionist thing about it. This is the first time Batman and Superman are meeting, and what people want to see is the person in their heads that they identify as Superman versus the person in their heads that they identify as Batman. Okay, and I didn't even have a big problem with Batman in Batman v Superman, apart from maybe the fact that he killed. I had a little bit of a problem with that. But I could identify, things, aspects about him that at his core were the same as Batman. The Bruce Wayne Batman duality and all of this kind of stuff. The kind of James Bondish character he played as Bruce Wayne. So fine over there. But a lot of Batman fans say that wasn't Batman, that wasn't their Batman, and I can understand, like the guy branding people, sending people to prison to get killed, all of that kind of stuff. That's not the classical, iconic Batman. So what you have is somebody with Batman's abilities versus somebody who has Superman's powers, and that is not what people signed up to see. They signed up to see what they know: the Boy Scout, the light, the hope, the whatever, versus the vengeance, the darkness, the whatever, who's only separated by his villains by one particular rule. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with this podcast. So that's just my first point.
I want to ask you this question though. Did you like Injustice?
No.
You never played Injustice?
Yes, I have.
Then you like that Superman did?
I played Injustice 2. I played. I hated it. Hated the story.
You like the game?
Yeah, game's tight.
You hate that Superman?
Not just Superman. I hated Wonder Woman too.
So you did hate the Superman?
Yeah, I ain't like him.
Alright. Because I'm just saying, if you want the Silver Age Superman, then you have to hate the other versions of Superman that's not Silver Age.
Superman is consistent throughout his whole entire canon mythos of being a certain type of character.
But not modern time Superman. The story.
Yes, even modern times.
Okay, here we go. So there's a lot to unpack there. Very, very interesting points Fatal J brought up. Obviously, the Superman in Injustice, and me as a huge Superman fan, as I said, Superman is my favorite superhero of all time. I think his mythology is so complete, and it's got all this kind of stuff that's interesting to me, about alien worlds and all of that kind of stuff. And plus the kind of operatic sense of what's going on when he gets to Earth and being this kind of messianic figure. But Injustice Superman, and here's the problem that Snyder fans don't understand. Injustice Superman's a great Superman. I think it's a really, really interesting story on Superman. I don't like their Wonder Woman so much in Injustice, because I think that, and I think Jody's right on this, that as much as Superman isn't the classical Superman in Injustice, at least he has a reason for turning evil. Wonder Woman doesn't even have a reason for turning evil, and it's so against her character. It's not like Lex Luthor bombed Themyscira or something like that, which was like, he killed my mother and sisters and stuff like that, or turned it so that all the it would have been cool if Lex Luthor made it so all the Themyscirans went old, and he was the only one who had the scientific know-how to be able to change them back, and he didn't, or something like that. And that's why she turns on the world and decides to align herself with Superman. She has no reason whatsoever for going against the kind of aspirational heroine aspects of her character and turning into this murderous psychopath. So in terms of the Injustice version of Superman, I like the Injustice version of Superman. I like the Injustice games. I like the Injustice comics. I think the motivation for Superman and Wonder Woman specifically turning evil is problematic in that. But here's the issue with the Snyder take on, that this is the idea, people want to see a dark Superman, people want to see that in cinema. And I think people would be open to that. Even Superman fans would be open to that, with the caveat, if we get the classical Superman first. Because the reason that game is so, interesting, and the reason we're like, oh my god, what is Superman doing? What is Wonder Woman doing? And it didn't have the same impact with Wonder Woman because people didn't know Wonder Woman that well until the movie came out. So that was even worse. Why what they did in Injustice really was a terrible thing on Wonder Woman. But Superman at least had, in the common kind of consciousness of people understood that he represented hope and aspiration. But they didn't know that Wonder Woman was like, she's the person who fights for peace and equality and is against war. And that's kind of the iconic Wonder Woman is like, that's her mission, to be an ambassador of peace to the world, right? So people didn't know that about her. So when they saw her turn in Injustice, it didn't have the same impact as it did with Superman, where people know he's the bastion of hope, and therefore, oh wow, Superman turning evil, how scary would that be, right? So the thing about having that in the DCEU and having that as the DC universe is, first of all, I don't think that's what Zack Snyder was trying to do. I think he was trying to make the hopeful, iconic Superman in his mind of how that Superman is, and he just failed because he's not the right person to do Superman. He's too much of a cynical person to be able to represent the kind of pure good kind of character and individual and their morality and what they would do. And the thing about that Superman and the thing about that Wonder Woman and what makes somebody an aspirational hero, it's kind of the same thing as what makes somebody a really good villain in a way, is that they have this kind of black and white morality where they think they're right and they cannot be there's no compromise in their vision of what is right? So even if, for instance, America enacted a law that Superman didn't believe in, he would go against it because it contradicts his notion of right and wrong. And the point being, right, that say you gave Superman a conundrum, this little girl has to be tortured and murdered, and then if you let this little girl get tortured and murdered, then we will we won't destroy your planet, or we'll destroy your planet if you don't let this little girl get tortured and murdered. Superman knows option A is wrong, option B is wrong, so I have to find a way, even though it's an impossible dilemma, an impossible paradox. I have to find a way to be able to overcome this impossible problem or dilemma, and he'll find that third way. And that's what Superman is, the hope that, in spite of everything, in spite of a world that tells you you have to compromise, that you don't compromise and you do the right thing no matter what. And that's what the aspirational hero is at heart. And if we had that classic version of Superman first in Man of Steel, in a sequel, then by the third movie, then you can start playing around with deconstruction and taking Superman down a dark path, and it would have that impact on the audience because they'll be like, oh, I've been with this Superman, not Christopher Reeve Superman, this Superman I'm watching now. I've been with this Superman and I trusted him and I thought he had always had the best interests of humans at heart. Oh my God, he's now turned. And then you'll have emotional investment in that change. And that's why Injustice works, because Injustice is mainly played by DC fans who know the Superman character, and by nerds and stuff like that who know the Superman character, and they're like, oh my God, Superman turning like this? This is crazy. To see a Superman who doesn't stand for the truth and the justice, that's what is so mind-boggling about that scenario, and it makes you emotionally invested in this Superman, where you're like, oh my god, I still like him because I still have some kind of love for him, because he's Superman. But he needs to be stopped, So without that has no power. And if you're saying that's what Zack Snyder was going for in the first movie, this change, this darker, this unchained Superman, then it doesn't have any cultural or powerful impact on the audience, because you have to get us to invest and care about Superman before you change him into this villain, the monstrous villain. It's like that thing that Two-Face, Harvey Dent, says in the Dark Knight. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, right? And that is the kind of arc that you need for you to have an emotional investment in when Superman takes on a more kind of harsh kind of thing. So, he kills Zod. He compromises his rule, right? If Batman compromises his rule in the first movie you see him in, then you're like, well, okay, so it doesn't really have the impact. If you say Batman absolutely will always find a way to avoid killing, and then finally he kills someone, you're like, oh, wow, he actually killed him, and then it has that kind of impact. So I don't buy that, thing by Fatal J about the injustice, how people want this injustice Superman. And I also don't agree with Jody that, I think he probably enjoys the game and enjoys the story because it's a good story, but it's based on people knowing who Superman is and having an affinity with the particular Superman that's been presented in the comics for a long time, which hadn't been presented in film since the 70s in a popular way when Zack Snyder came on board. So you couldn't just leap ahead to that. Anyway, let's listen to a bit more.
Even Rebirth Superman,
and then we'll start another video.
The freaking Golden Age Superman. What you're talking about are graphic novels that aren't canon. All stories.
So you're talking about joints like what was that? Justice League War. You ever seen them joints? That comic book in the anime?
I seen
that was a Silver Age Superman.
No, it wasn't.
So do you like War, Justice League War?
Yeah, I do like Justice League War.
Then
but that was Superman though.
That motherfucker was doing some crazy stuff and
actually, Jody, I'll have to disagree and agree with Fatal J on that. That was actually New 52 Superman. And that Superman was a problem. That Superman that you saw in Justice League War is the reason we got the Zack Snyder Superman. Because people forgot and were trying to make Superman cool and relatable and hard edge and all of this kind of dark, the guy who, just run into a fight and just start, beating people up and stuff like that. And yeah, the whole new Justice League War Superman that they were running with Superman dating Wonder Woman rather than Lois Lane, all of that was the New 52 garbage that the DCEU was based on, and that is where the DCEU went wrong. And Patty Jenkins fortunately had the foresight to look beyond I'm sure that when she was being pitched to direct Wonder Woman, that they were going, oh, look at this New 52 line where the Amazons are killers and they raped men, and look at this, like can we try and adapt this New 52 where Wonder Woman's edgy and all of that garbage. And she had the foresight to go, actually, that's not what I remember of that 70s show Wonder Woman, and I think people would like that 70s show Wonder Woman a little bit more than this kind of edgy, I don't edgelord Wonder Woman or whatever you're doing there. And she chose to take the New 52, parts of the New 52 origin, which I still think are problematic. She shouldn't have taken anything from the New 52, not the Zeus dad, anything. She should have stuck with the classic Wonder Woman origin. But anyway, she took the Zeus thing, but she kept the moral, Wonder Woman's morality, and her aspirational views of the world, and she kept that, and that's why that Wonder Woman film worked so well, and people fell in love with Wonder Woman. Okay, I'm gonna do a part 2 to this, because if I don't, it will cut me off from the sound. So, okay.